In this video, I'm going to discuss about e-transaction, that means e-commercial transactions. I'm also going to discuss about whether e-commercial transaction, that means the monetary transactions, is an obvious factor when we are in the COVID lockdown period. Most of the times, we do get to see that in the e-commerce platforms, we are asked to pay through plastic money or through e-wallets or through net banking. What is plastic money? It denotes to all types of banking related cards that come with inbuilt electronic chips with banking details of the authorized holder of the card. These cards may be used for net banking purposes also. These cards may be also swiped when some person comes to collect the amount with the product. So due to several reasons, including COVID pandemic, the government all across the globe, many countries basically have decided that use of currency notes should be reduced. COVID-19 pandemic is such a situation where even the WHO also advised to reduce the usage of any materials, including paper materials, which may transmit the virus from people to people. Reduction of usage of currency notes were suggested as it was understood that this material, that is the material by which the currency notes are made, may get wet with sweat, saliva, etc. And these may be extremely dangerous since it might increase the risk of spreading the pandemic. This automatically denotes that all individuals, including adults as well as children, senior citizens, customers, clients, patients, all of us have to use the electronic payment modes. But online payment modes or using the plastic money e-wallets are not always safe. As we can get to see, there can be safety related issues from the perspective of physical theft. Physical theft can be done for wallets and also the cards. Cards can be misused. They can be just picked up from the pockets, which we generally normally call as pickpocketing, etc. Next, we also get to see hacking, or what we call in the legal terms unauthorized access. Hacking of the e-banking systems may directly affect the card operating system. ATM machines may be unauthorizedly accessed. There are cases where spy cams have been installed in the machines to detect the banking informations, including the passwords, etc. All of this actually come within the broader understanding of unauthorized access to the net banking system, the ATM machines, the electronic payment systems, etc. Phishing attacks can also be there because most of the times we cannot expect that all of us will be digitally literate, or even if we are digitally literate, the phishing attackers basically are so smart that they can get all the informations about our cards and then they can perform the phishing attacks. Next, we also get to see senior citizens who were worst affected and who are still worst affected, as most of them in countries like India or in many other countries could not operate the e-banking system or the cards. They may either not understand the operational mechanisms, or they may not be physically able to conduct the entire transaction either through the ATMs or through their smart devices, because they might not be able to see or understand the entire operational factors. Further, e-wallets can also be something problematic, because e-wallets may necessarily be used through the computers, smartphones, etc. And when we discuss about unauthorized access, phishing attacks, etc., we must understand that e-wallets are also not safe. Along with this, we also have the problem of digital divide in our society. When we speak about e-transactions, we are often told by many stakeholders, including the banks, the e-commerce platforms, etc., that e-transactions are safe, and there are teams who are making such e-transactions very safe. Is it really safe? Whenever we get to see a very smooth or even a bumpy operation of the services from the banks or from any other government or corporate authorities, we must know that there is a secret team behind this government department or bank or companies, etc., who are working for the e-transactions. This secret team may be independent agency who may be commissioned by such government, bank, corporate authorities, and they perform all the technical functions for economic transactions, maintenance of the records for money transaction, maintenance of cybersecurity issues, etc. And they're duty bound to not to violate the confidentiality of the user data. As such, as you can get to see in this drop down menu. So what happens here is that this secret team basically accepts the order from the main acceptor, that means from the main government platforms, the banks, the e-commerce platforms, etc. And the moment the government authorities or the banks or the companies, etc., they accept the order, they generally go ahead for outsourcing such kinds of things to these kinds of authorities, that is the service providers. These are all authorized service providers. So in fact, there are layers of contracts between the actual user and the bank, government, company, etc., between such service provider and the actual user and the government. Now, or any other authorities who are basically using the services of these service providers, or what we now call as secret team. We know only the first layer of the contracts and the agreements between us and the actual users, that is the bank or the government stakeholders or the companies from whom we are buying certain things. But there are several examples of violating the agreements and contracts. These service providers know us more than we know ourselves because they know our bank details, they know our spending habits, and they even know our location data too. So once they have performed their duties, that means they have executed certain orders, etc. So what they will do, work done, the result will be showing on the surface platforms. That means, suppose for example, I want to buy certain things, I place an order and then I go ahead for clicking on the payment mode. And the payment mode will be taking some time, say for example maximum 5 to 8 minutes. It will be done, and on my phone or on my computer screen I'll be getting to see that the OTP has been received, the payment has been done, so now the order is confirmed. This is the entire secret mechanism of making the transactions safe and also the making the transactions smooth. Now we must understand there are few provisions of Chapter 3 of our very own Information Technology Act 2000, which was amended in 2008. These provisions basically discuss about electronic governance, and these provisions also put emphasis or also discusses about such kinds of e-mechanisms of transactions, etc. But there is a hidden message in this, and that is what is today's lecture's main point. That means, do we really have to pay through the e-mechanisms, or do we still have some right to pay through the currency notes? In this regard, we have to discuss about Section 6A of the Information Technology Act amended in 2008. As we do get to see, Section 6A discusses about the delivery of the services by the service provider. And it says that the appropriate government may, for the purpose of this chapter and for efficient delivery of the services to the public through electronic means authorized by order any service provider to set up, maintain, upgrade and the computerized facilities and perform such other services as it may specify by notification in the official gazette. And then the explanation comes up. It says, for the purpose of this section, service providers so authorized includes any individual, private agency, private company, partnership firm, sole proprietorship firm, or any such other body or agency which has been granted permission by the appropriate government to offer services through electronic means in accordance with the policy governing such service sector. What do we get to see from section 6A? Here, we get to see that the online transactions for e-commerce purposes are directly connected with the core concept of service delivery by the service providers as it has been discussed in section 6A. Section 6A of the IT Act has got two main component parts. Number one, that we just discussed, authorization to the service providers by the government to set up provisions for delivery of services in the electronic mode. Number two, collection of the service charges by the the service providers. We are not going to discuss about the second mode, but we are going to concentrate only on the first aspect, that is authorization to the service providers by the government to set up provisions for delivery of the services. As you probably have understood, these service providers actually include the secret team that I just. Now, we should be considered about the cyber security aspect of not only the electronic payment mechanism but also that cyber security aspect that is being considered or that actually are being dealt with by this secret team. Now, considering the risk for breaching the confidentiality in all such cases where electronic payments are made or electronic transactions are made, our Information Technology Act actually created, or the lawmakers created, Section 7A, and Section 7A was inserted as per the amended version, and it has prescribed for auditing of the documents. What is the auditing of the documents? That means the entire cybersecurity infrastructure, how the payment mechanisms are working, or how the record keeping, electronic record keepings, etc. are being working, or whether they are doing proper works or not, whether they are these secret teams or the service providers, they are performing their duties of generating the records, maintaining the records, etc. on the digital or electronic platforms or electronic forms, etc. Whether they are doing it in a proper format, in a legal format, etc. that has to be audited. Therefore, Section 7A very clearly says, which speaks about audit of the documents, etc. maintained in the electronic form. It says, where in any law for the time being in force, there is a provision for audit of the documents, records or information, that provision shall also be applicable for audit of documents, records or information processed and maintained in the electronic form. But unfortunately, this is hugely neglected by many stakeholders, and this loophole creates several data breaching related to legal issues. The Indian legislature has brought in the Intermediary Guidelines Rule 2021 that would be discussed in some other video session, but this also shifts the liability for the data protection for intermediaries in certain cases, especially when we are basically getting to see certain other platforms, e-commerce platforms that are connected with some kinds of social media platforms or that are independent platforms. In all such cases, this Section 7A may be applicable for considering about the liability for the safekeeping of the documents and also safekeeping of the records, especially our banking records. Now we have understood who are the secret team behind the smooth or bumpy electronic transactions, that is e-payment transactions, etc. What are the laws related to the service providers and the maintenance of the digital records, including the banking records, etc. Now comes the question, which is very pertinent question, is that whether it is adhering to the constitutional rights to equality, right to life, etc. As I just discussed that we do have digital divide in our society, we would get to see that not always the e-transaction mode may be performed by all of us. Adults, including men, women, and people belonging to LGBTQ communities, may not always access information and digital communication systems and services. That means they may not always get the access to e-commerce platforms, or for example e-transaction platforms. Some of them might not even know how to use the ATM cards, that is the plastic money, or e-wallets, etc. This is a universal problem. Women may not be empowered to use electronic devices in socio-economically backward classes and communities. Again, you get to see those who are adolescent children. In some families, parents or guardians might give them access to searching for certain kinds of products, but the actual payment may be made by the guardians or the parents. But we also have got to see that certain children, they know about all these, like e-banking like mechanisms, etc., and they have misused the information of their parents. Again, in certain cases, you would get to see that there are some adolescent children who may have accessed the e-commerce platforms, but because of the digital divide, because of the digital illiteracy of their parents, they may not be able to buy certain things by using the e-transaction mechanisms or e-commercial transaction mechanisms. They might not be able to pay the amount through the e-commerce platforms. Again, if any one of you are doing any study with LGBTQ community, you might also get to see that there are people, especially the transgender people, who might not be even given any plastic cards, or who might not even be knowing that how to operate the e-wallets, etc. So even if they would like to buy something from the e-commerce platforms, they would definitely face the challenges. In all such cases, aren't our constitutional rights get violated if the government or any other stakeholder insists on e-transactions? Actually, it does. So answer to this question may be found in Section 9 of the IT Act. Let us read this section very carefully. It says, Sections 6, 7 and 8, not to confer right to insist document should be accepted in electronic form. Nothing contained in Sections 6, 7 and 8 shall confer a right upon any person to insist that any ministry or department of the central government or the state government or any authority or body established by or under any law or controlled or funded by the central or the state government should accept, issue, create, retain and preserve any document in the form of electronic records or effect any monetary transaction in the electronic form. This provision is something which is very much benevolent for the persons who might face challenges for the electronic records keeping, or for example for exchange of money through the electronic medium, or for, in very simple terms, for anything that requires e-payment mode. But it does not mean that this can be taken as the regular rule. Nonetheless, the above mentioned provision, that means Section 9, empowers all who may not be able to use or who may want to refuse the use of electronic payment system, but this may not always be considered as the rule. This is rather exceptio probat regulam. An exception proves the rule in the era of internet. But again, this is the reason that we get to see that many basically may not be able to get the services or may not be able to buy the essential services from the e-commerce platforms when there is a lockdown going on and they may not be able to go out to purchase certain things with the currency notes.
But then what is the solution? For example, the senior citizens, or for example, those who are digitally illiterate, or for example, those who are coming from socio-economically challenged background. I use the word challenged because there may be several persons who, because of their socio-economical background, may not have been properly educated, may have a smart device, but may not know how to use the e-wallets, how to use the plastic money safely. In all such cases, we have seen that even though there are awareness campaigns by the government, by the non-government stakeholders, by even the banks also, in my understanding, I think that there should be some more awareness, there should be some more workshops done basically to literate these people, especially the senior citizens, as how to use the e-wallets, how to use the plastic money, how to use the net banking. Until and unless this is 100% achieved, Section 9 will still hold good. That means Section 9 of Information Technology will still hold good. And no matter what, nobody can insist that a person has to basically pay through the e-wallets or through net banking or through electronic medium, any sort of electronic medium.